Welcome, everybody, to our Wednesday, September 6th Special City Commission to consider our budget. For those that don't know, we are, by law, not allowed to have a budget meeting the same night as the county has their budget meeting. So that's why we're not doing this tomorrow night. We're doing it tonight. And also, by law, we have to have it after 5 o'clock.
Correct.
So there you go. So we'll call this meeting to order, and we'll move on to new business. We have Resolution 23-10 establishing tentative millage rate for fiscal year 2024. Jennifer, can you please read Resolution 23-10 by title only?
Yes. Resolution 2310, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Dunedin, Florida, adopting the tentative millage rate per...
You need to turn your microphone on.
I'm so sorry. Resolution 23-10, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Dunedin, Florida, adopting the tentative millage rate for ad valorem tax revenue for fiscal year 2023-24 at a rate of 4.3145 mils, or $4.13 per $1,000 of assessed property value, providing for a second and final public hearing date, and providing for an effective date. That was Resolution 2310, read by title only.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Gao
Second.
and Commissioner Franny. Thank you. Okay. Millage rate discussion?
Yes, good.
Oh,
Good
sorry.
evening. That's all right.
Sorry,
Good
I
evening,
knew
Mayor.
it should go to you.
That's
My
perfectly fine.
apologies.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I just want to make a few comments about the budget process. Typically, this first public hearing is really a kind of a broad brush of the budget, and a lot of work has gone into it to get us to this point. And so for those of you who may be watching, I just wanted to talk a little bit about where we've been and how we got here. We typically start the budget process with the budget kickoff in late winter, and that's staff putting together new initiatives and reporting out on where we were with our existing initiatives and our capital plan as well. We have a strategic planning retreat, which we held in spring of this year to kind of get to some of the Commission's thoughts on paper as far as the direction of the budget goes. We then start our budget workshops, and this time we had 3 of them. We had a budget workshop on July 18th, a budget workshop on August 15th, and then we called a special budget workshop on August 22nd, and that was in regards specifically to our larger capital projects, and we had some good discussion on that as well. The proposed budget is published on June 30th of 2023 this year, and that's kind of for public consumption and comment as well. And so the Board of Finance actually met 6 times on the budget and reviewed the budget and reported out to you on August 15th of this year. And so with that, we're moving on to our budget adoption, which we always do during the month of September. Les has prepared a few slides. He's going to go over some things that we need to mention per statute this evening, and then we'll have the City Commission's discussion. So I'll turn it over to Les. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Les Tyler, the Finance Director, and I'm here with Ashley Kempton, our Budget Manager. As mentioned, this item includes Resolution 23-10 to establish a tentative millage rate for fiscal year 24, and Resolution 23-11 establishing the tentative budget for fiscal year 24. We also had a few minor adjustments to the budget that we'll walk through this presentation as well. Starting with the slide before you, in accordance with Federal Statute 200-0654C, the City of Dunedin is holding a public hearing this evening on the proposed millage rate and tentative budget for fiscal year 24. Prior to adoption, the City Commission may elect to adjust the tentative millage rate or amend the tentative budget as it sees fit. Following adoption, staff will publicly announce the percentage at which the tentative millage rate exceeds the 2023 rollback rate. Staff will also state the date of the second and final public hearing when the final millage rate and final budget will be adopted. A maximum millage rate of 4.1345 mils, or $4.13 per $1,000 in property value, was established through the adoption of Resolution 23-09 on July 13th, 2023. In accordance with TRIM, a millage rate of 4.1345 mils is 10.24% above the 2023 rollback rate, which is 7.5303, 3.7503 mils from growth in property value. Ad valorem taxes are budgeted at a 95% collection rate, the minimum required by Florida statute, at 4.1345 mils. Ad valorem taxes are projected to generate 15.457 million in the general fund, and also ad valorem taxes will account for 40% of the general fund's revenues in fiscal year 24. That's a typo. That should be 24, not 23. And this is moving to the budget process. Those were the slides that were specifically for the millage rate.
Okay. Okay, are there any questions for Les, Ashley, or Jennifer on the millage rate? I see no one rushing to their microphones. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak to our millage rate? I see no one else rushing to the microphone. All right, we'll come back to the maker of the motion, Commissioner Gao.
No, I'm in support of the millage rate of 4.1345. I think we certainly got the support of the Finance Board, which speaks volumes, given how fiscally they look at our budget. I also look at our reserve, and especially the future years of the reserve, and I'm concerned about that. And I think that any reduction in the millage rate at this time would just have a negative impact on the future years, if not this budget. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and then Commissioner Franny.
I will, certainly second everything that Commissioner Gauss said. I agree with the millage rate. I think that when we look at the long-standing, long-term numbers, it's important for us to be cautious. We are, in a sense, running a business for our citizens. It's our citizens' business. My goal has always been to maintain a slow, steady, stable, responsible budget for our citizens. In particular, I think it was important that we listened carefully to our Citizen Board, which is our Finance Board, which is the only charter established board of the city. And they very much cautioned us and recommended not to roll back the millage rate, but to keep it stable as we look to our outer years. So I'm supportive of the millage rate.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker?
Yes, I am too supportive of the millage rate at 4.1345. And this really just echoes the comments by my colleagues. Board of Finance took a very long and hard look at this, and it's the responsible thing to do in the operation of the city. So I'm in support of the millage rate.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Let me just start off by saying I will attempt to keep this short and sweet. I will attempt. I disagree with what has been said, and particularly about the Board of Finance. This has to be looked at as a total package. You have to look at what your revenue is going to come, what your income is going to be, and then you have to look at what your outflow is going to be. And I think the Board of Finance was given little choice in the matter regarding where we're getting the money from, just that the fact we needed the money. Of course, everyone can use the money. Inflation is here, and that's another reason why I had asked for a rollback. Not the rollback because I believe that the city has too much money, just a concern for some of our residents and citizens.
Bless you.
In our great city of Dunedin. So it's not a significant amount of money to any one individual, but I'm going to just tell you a really quick story right now, which happened today. I was in Baywood, attending to city business by being there and talking with the residents, et cetera. And I did run into a lady, name will be left, who's at a crisis. She had just water everywhere inside of her house, lost pretty much of everything, and just a calamity was just descending upon her. that she was saying, I don't know where I'm going to go with this. There's an individual who could use a little relief. I started off by talking about a rollback because of the concerns that we have of a 14% increase in electricity for our residents. We've had insurance costs go up anywhere from 20 to 30% to 300%. We've had people lose their insurance and are not able to get insurance until they have to put a roof on their house. And we have people that are on fixed incomes, and we have people that are on fixed incomes that relate to pensions that do not change, do not increase. And so that was a concern that I had. The only way that we could reduce our rate would be to lessen our expense. And we didn't do that. So if I were to ask a question of pretty much anyone about how would we increase the amount of monies that we have coming into us currently, certainly from the general fund, 40% of the general fund comes from ad valorem tax. They'd have to look someplace else if they wanted to increase that number. I'm not trying to lighten up the monies that we have. Was trying to cause us to perhaps give some relief on some of the spending that we're involved in. Just want to share with you a comment that was given in Tampa Bay Times just recently, July 23. And they're talking about inflation and a few other things. And it says, just how high is inflation? Their prices still going up in the entire metro area, including Pinellas. What caused the national inflation spike? Most cited culprits include pent-up demand caused by COVID lockdowns and related job losses, supply chain bottlenecks, pandemic-related disruptions to business service, too much government spending, poor government leadership, the war in Ukraine, a spike in energy costs, and not enough housing. The U.S. Federal Reserve has reported in here that they wish to be at 2%. We've heard that for the last 3 years. We're having a heck of a time trying to get there, so we definitely have wage inflation going on, and that inflation is going to affect people. So that's why I have attempted to make a comment and to ask for some kind of a rollback, not necessarily a full rollback, but a rollback. Just recently, as I've been told and understand, the Treasury has expanded the use of ARPA monies for funding to include natural disasters, additional transportation projects, and housing. That's a hard thing to put into our equation when you're working on a budget. I've never seen a department that's worked as hard and as long in this budget as what this department, I brought that up to the city manager recently, constantly giving updates, changing numbers, trying to make things happen for us. However, I'm going to go ahead and stick with a fiscal conservative responsibility point, and go ahead and I'm going to not vote for the current rate that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I am supportive of the millage rate that we currently have. It is the same millage rate that we've had for the last 7 years. I believe if we go back 20 or 22 years, it's lower than it was back then, because at one point we had a millage rate that was, I think, 4.42 or something to that effect.
Actually, at 5 for a long time.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, but then we were able to reduce our costs with the Sheriff's Department. Thank you, Mo. So any increase in property tax is based on the property value, and that property value is obtainable by our residents to be able to use. When we talk about lessening our expenses, we had very long conversations here about how to do that. And some people brought opportunities to lessen our expenses forward, and some didn't. The cost of goods and all of the things that were just mentioned has increased for us as well. And so I think the only responsible thing we can do is at least maintain the strength of our organization, and I am supportive of that. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Torga.
Nay.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Franny.
Aye.
Commissioner Gao.
Aye.
Mayor Bajowski.
Aye, and that motion passes 4-1. Okay, our next and final item is Resolution 23-11, establishing a tentative budget for 2024. Jennifer, would you please read Resolution 23-11 by title only?
Of course. Resolution 23-11, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Dunedin, Florida, adopting the tentative operating and capital budget for fiscal year commencing October 1, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024, providing for a second and final public hearing date and providing it for an effective date. That was Resolution 23-11, read by title only.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Franny and Commissioner Walker, thank you. Les?
Okay, thank you. We've had some changes to the budget since our August 22nd special meeting when we last met, and I want to briefly go through those. And this one is starting with changes in citywide revenue, and this shows the total revenue on the far left that was at as of the special meeting on August 22nd, and then the change today that we're discussing our tentative budget. The only change in the revenue side, we had an increase of $101,905 for charges for services, and that was for increased medical expenses in the health fund to account for the new positions for the health cost across all funds. And moving on the expenditure side, and again, this is citywide, same thing. This shows the changes since August 22nd through the tentative budget today. And just a few to point out here. First, personnel costs have increased some. We had an adjustment in the general fund for the cost of the new positions. The amount that we had calculated for the new positions on August 22nd was about $70,000 more as we fine-tuned the numbers, so we made that adjustment in the tentative budget. We also have some new position cost increase in other funds of $250,000 and coming to a total of about $179,000 increase in total personnel cost. And we also had an increase in operating cost of about $113,000. That's for property insurance increase of $51,000. An increase in medical expenses for health, again, for $93,000 for the new positions. An increase in the wastewater fund of $82,000 for a biosolids hauling contract we wanted to get in the budget because we knew the budget was going to be increasing in '24. And also, we had a $128,000 decrease in our ISF costs in the general fund for the estimates for new positions allocation we did on August 22nd, so we're truing that number up as well in our numbers today. On the capital side, we had an increase of $33,000. We had added the purchase of a truck for one of the new positions that were approved for the new horticultural technician position in the Parks and Rec Department for $33,000 was added to the budget. And also we increased the aid to organization funding by $20,000 approved by the commission last meeting from $148,000 to $168,000. And this shows changes by fund. This is really sort of the same information, but just showing the funds that were impacted. And again, if you look at the total, you can see the $101,905 increase in revenue, and then a $345,242 increase in expenditures across all funds. We have a brief general fund update too. We had some changes to the general fund since our August 22nd meeting. Some of those I just discussed, but I'll briefly go through them. We had, I mentioned a decrease in the cost of new positions of about $70,000 compared to August 22nd. And we had also a $128,000 decrease in ISF costs that I just mentioned. We were a little aggressive on the allocation for the ISF funds. And we had an increase in property and liability cost of $58,580. And then we had the $33,000 purchase for the vehicle for the Parks and Rec Department that I just mentioned. And so with those adjustments, our general fund is slightly better than it was on August 22nd. Our reserve level is 19.4% in 2024. It was 19%. It's gone up 0.4%, above our target of 15%. Our shortfall in the general fund tentative budget is 1.1 million each year from 25 to 29, and that number was about 1.285 million each year, so that's improved some since the August 22nd presentation as well. And 25, real quick, fiscal year 25 also improved as well. Fiscal year 25 now, if you look under 25 column, we're at 13.8%, and so we're slightly below our 15% goal, but not by a significant number. That's about a $500,000 impact to get us to that 15% number. And this is looking at our budget in total citywide, our fiscal year 24 tentative budget for all funds, and this shows the list by fund for revenue and expense in each fund. And the total revenues are $119,570,000. The total expenses are $133,282,000. Just want to mention our expenses are a little more than our revenue, as you can see. That was discussed some throughout the budget process. I just want to point out that the main reason for that is we have our ARPA funding that came in up front, and we've got about $5.1 million of fund balance we're spending in ARPA in 2024, and we've also got about $5.8 million in penny fund of fund balance that we're spending in 2024 due to the nature and timing of capital projects. Just wanted to point that out. Now we're moving to the next part of the meeting where, regarding the tentative budget may be amended at this point. Any desired changes in the tentative budget must be made prior to adoption. And we're now discussing Resolution 23-11, establishing a tentative operating and capital budget for fiscal year 24.
Okay, any questions for Les, Ashley, or Jennifer?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I've asked this before. What do we do if our revenue does not meet our estimates or our expenses exceed our revenues? I mean, what do we do?
Well, if our expenses exceed revenue, if during the year we have budget amendments, for one. If we see our expenses are more than our budget, we have budget amendments throughout the budget process, and that could be on the revenue side or the expenditure side. But we monitor the budget throughout the year. You know, we look at the budget on a quarterly basis very closely. We look at it on a monthly basis, but we look at it on a monthly basis and quarterly basis, and get in front of any trends or things we might see that would have revenues under or expenditures over.
So would you say that we're kind of pushing this? I mean, you brought up some new information regarding our general fund, which actually shows in a couple cases quite a high reserve. Okay, so it would seem like we have almost an excessive reserve now. Not excessive, but I'm happy with the reserve, or at that level at this point in time. But so we either increase our revenue by increasing our tax if it continues that way, or we have to reduce our expenses. Correct? And so we do our best. We do our best to try to forecast where we see ourselves going, and it's a tough thing to do. It's a hard thing to do in our environment today. Hard.
Jennifer, hang on just a second, she wanted to add.
If I may, Vice Mayor, just to add a little bit to what Les is saying, is that as we monitor the budget, if we see that revenue is not, and we budget it conservatively, as you know, we forecast conservatively. If we're not bringing the revenue that we thought, then we will bring that to the City Commission and we won't do the project. So we won't spend the money if we don't have it.
So we come up to, you raised a question or talked about some increases for, and I missed that point. You said we had some you showed a chart and showed some increases in costs for was that just for new employees, the increases, did you say, or was that for all employees?
That was for the new employees, yeah.
For new employees.
Yeah.
So we said it went up some number like I forgot what the number was.
About 250,000.
250,000. And before it was reported at about 620,000 to new employees?
Well, we'd already factored in the general fund, so the general fund was already in there, so yeah, that's why it's a different number, yeah. But to answer your question real quickly, the general fund, reserve is a little better than it was a couple weeks ago, from 19.0 to 19.4, which is good. It's helpful, but we still have have a shortfall in 25 through 29 of 1.1 million. So 24 is in a good position, and 25 is in a little better position. But I just want to point out again that we still, in the outer years, have a shortfall.
What is the cost of the new employees in the general fund total?
About 207, somewhere in there. Yeah, something like that.
207,000.
207,000, yeah.
And what is the cost of the new employees in total, again?
The cost of the new employees in total is about $600,000, roughly.
That's not for the general fund, that's
That's across all funds.
all
Yeah,
funds.
all funds.
So is that 207 add to the 600?
207 is part of the 600, yeah.
It's part of the 600?
Mhm.
So if we subtracted that, it would have been 400. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if those two, yeah, right. Mhm.
Oh, boy, I don't remember.
But when we're talking about labor adjustments, we're looking at total labor adjustments, and we mentioned in the last meeting, we had a 4% set aside for the class and comp study. That was a little more than needed, so there's a lot of moving parts in the labor section, not just new positions. So we had cushion there in the budget as well, as far as on the labor side.
We added on we had a focus for a period of time on the 4 big projects that we're talking about. And we added at one point in time, relatively recently, a construction management to one of those funds. So we had 4 of them. The Skinner Fund is being taken care of by, construction management's being taken care of by FDOT, correct?
Correct.
And then we have the Dunedin Golf Club restoration, and we hired that as well, correct?
That's being handled internally, yeah, with consultants, yeah.
Okay. And then where we added it was to the Highlander Aquatic Complex. So of those 4 projects then, two of them equal, well, the Highlander and the Midtown equal a little bit over 1.1 million or some number like that.
Mm-hmm.
What is the total of the construction, would you suppose, although we're not paying for it because it's incorporated into the total funds for the Skinner Boulevard? And if you want to leave that out, that's fine.
It was about $1 million for the construction management,
For the 2 that we have.
for the Skinner project. Right, and it's being
Oh,
paid
for
for
the
by
Skinner.
FDOT,
Okay,
right?
for a million for the Skinner.
Right.
And that was, thank you for that. But my point was really about the other 3, and I was just curious to see what we felt that was. The other 3 then with the golf club, et cetera, is probably some number of 1.4 million or something like that, correct?
Probably close to that, 1.1 or more, that's for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
more than 1.1, yeah.
And so that is really getting things done for us outside of our scope of management, if I may.
So yeah, we
Crudely.
added, if I may, the construction management consultant to specifically the pool. And we actually, we should have provided for additional funding for that, but we actually have open positions that we're looking to hire. So it's a combination of consultant and positions that we need to hire that we hope we'll be able to hire by the time we go under construction. So it's a combination of the 2 of them.
Let me sum up some of my concern. I'll just sum up my concern in one paragraph.
Well, if we can This is just for
As a-
questions
as a-
first.
Yeah, as a question. As a-
Okay,
as a
well, so I
question.
don't want to sum up
No,
concerns.
no, I'm going to sum it up and he can answer it.
Okay.
So I'll sum all of this up. My concern is, obviously, we just watch the federal government get into a little bit of a problem. We have a AAA rating, they had a AAA rating. They sort of lost that. Fitch came out and did the negative. And we had all worked really hard trying to get that to the AAA. And so my concern is that we ensure that we do not get to that point. And I just want you as a staff to know that. But I would like for you to then respond to make sure that we don't get to that point of difficulty. And one of the things you said we do is we would make sure that as we started these projects, we're going to be watching them closely. Once they get started, they're started.
Right, we do that, and we also work closely with our financial advisors, Hilltop Securities, and our bond counsel team as we approach all these projects that are going to have, that may have loans on them. They all go through their own individual process. Working with the financial advisor, they come back to the commission for approval and input, for the financing plan. These are estimated financing plans. Each of these will have formal financing plans that will be brought to the commission at some point in the future. And through that process, as we do each of those, we'll make sure that they're affordable and they're meeting all of our requirements of our debt policy and our internal policies, and be careful that we, protect that AA+ rating that we do have.
And the last question, of the numbers that were in here, I believe they were all updated, correct, recently as far as estimates?
Yeah, the estimates were recent estimates, yes, they were, yeah. We'll need to look at them again down the road once we, determine exactly when we're going to be going out for financing for some of these projects, but yeah, there are recent estimates, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak to our budget, our tentative budget, please feel free to do so. I don't think I see anybody here from the public, so we'll come back to the maker of the motion. Commissioner Frank.
Yeah, so, we've had multiple budget workshops, spent a lot of time studying all of this. We know one of our biggest demands this year was the same thing that across the nation they're facing, which is market labor pressures. And we know our absolute greatest asset and commodity is our employees. So we've had to face that ourselves, just like the rest of the U.S. has had to, well, around the world, actually. And we had the benefit of being able to listen to our Citizen Finance Board, who studies it so much, and again, preached caution to us, and preached some cuts, too, by the way, things not to do, and we tried to listen to that. I don't personally agree with everything in this budget. I gave a fairly long list of cuts as part of this process. I did this to ensure we're being as lean as we can be, budget to budget. But again, my philosophy is to provide that slow, steady, stable, responsible budget for our citizens. And I do that by talking to citizens, understanding what their needs and wants are, and also our citizen surveys, which give us a great insight into what we know our citizens want. But again, it's our job to be fiscally responsible. And my goal is to not go up and down, but to try to provide that stability for our citizens. In my view, if any colleague up here wants a rollback rate, to me, the responsible thing would be to provide suggested cuts to reduce expenses. That didn't happen during the budget process. That's just my own personal opinion. As far as capital goes, I do want to say I have a memo that I wanted to read. And it was written on April 25th, 2017, and it was written to the county. And it says, the City of Dunedin is pleased to partner with Pinellas County in educating voters about the impact of Penny for Pinellas in anticipation of the voter referendum this November. The City Commission identified the following list of signature projects if a third extension is approved for 2020 through 2029, And this is, of course, became a list that got advertised to our voters. Emergency Operations Center, which is completed. New City Hall Government Services Center, which is completed, and some variations did include a parking garage with that. Pavement Preservation Program, which is ongoing, but we put a lot bigger investment into the Pavement Preservation Program. Skinner Corridor Improvements, which is one of the main 4 capital projects that are in this budget. The Aquatic Center, which again is another of the big projects for capital that's in this budget. I think we made a commitment to our citizens with these projects. I think this is just a point in time. At any point in time, when we see escalating costs for some of these projects, if we can't do them all, we can't do them all. But we sit up here and we'll see every part of that decision-making process. This is a point in time. This is our best, educated decision that we can do these things, we can achieve these things, but that is to be continued. We will have new information and new money. Not new money, I wish we had new money, but new numbers potentially. Hopefully not. Hopefully we can bring these in. So again, I'm supportive of all these projects at this point. That can change. So again, I would just repeat, I also share concerns like the Finance Board did about our future operating costs. There's a lot of pressure on the city as I look to these out numbers. Caution to me is the responsible way to run this citizens' business, and so I support this budget as a point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker.
Thank you. So I've also talked to our community and our residents with regards to this. And one of the things that,
Microphone?
Microphone.
Your microphone.
Yep. One of the key things that I took away from those conversations is there is an expectation that we are responsible with our budget and that we are diligent with regards to what we're spending the money on. And we've had these capital improvement projects in the plan for quite some time. These are promises we made to the community. And just to not keep those promises or let some of the structural integrity of some of these things fallow, I would say would be the irresponsible thing to do. We are at a point in time where we can do this. I also will applaud the staff and Les and his team with regards to generally approved accounting principles, which ensures and enforces a conservative approach to how we recognize our budget. And I have confidence that they will continue that conservative approach. So we get back to the point in time, and we approve the budget, and these items will be in the budget. But that doesn't mean that down the road we have to make some other decisions if there's something more emergent, something that's more critical occur. So I'm in favor of the budget, because the plan that we have put together, and we've been briefed on it several times, really hasn't changed significantly, but these are promises that we made to the committee or to the community. So I'm in favor of the budget.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. We probably have one of the strongest background Board of Finances in a long time. They're just really good, really excellent, and I'm really proud of what they've done and some of the work that they have taken on. And I actually want to brag on them. I mean, they're that good. They're excellent. We have it's the one board that we have the enabling ordinance on, that we have in our charter, which is our Constitution, and we have an enabling ordinance which establishes some of the things that we wish for them to do. So They've just done a great job this year, just fantastic. Therefore, I'd like to just cover a few things that they did say to us. And this was in a letter written to us, to the city manager, to members of the commission. Report to City Commission on projected 2024 budget. They report they reviewed it, and as to the budget, we have several comments. Expenses exceed, this was the numbers that they had at that point in time. Expenses exceeded revenues by $13.4 million. While this appears to be driven largely by 28.6 increase in capital, we believe a more cautious approach is warranted for the following reason. And we've talked about these things during some of this budget process. There's no consensus on the general economic direction for the balance of this year and into the first half of the next year. A recession is still a possibility, which would have ramifications for our revenue projections. B, 2024 is an election year and may also have some negative impact on the economy. And C, while inflation appears to be slowing, there may be some surprises as we roll out scheduled capital projects regarding costs of materials and availability of contract labor resources. And of course, we have wage inflation. Number two, they reported capital exceeds last year by $28.8 million. We support the capital projects, but we would suggest be very careful, and we need to prioritize these. And I'm summarizing, they were just nervous about some of this. They went on and talked about the general fund expenses exceeded revenues by $3.4 million. While we understand that the fund balances fluctuate from year to year, our concerns with the fund are as follows. The fund balance as a percentage of operating budget is projected to be 15.6 versus a target of 15. Leaves little room for a negative surprise. Future years are projected to worsen in terms of ending fund balance and variances to the 15% target. The year-over-year rate of change in expenses is nearly double that of revenue. We believe this is excessive and unsustainable. Likewise, we do not believe using the fund balance to get a balanced budget is sustainable, and we would suggest a more cautious approach. They go on to talk on point number 4. As of June 30th, we were informed there were 46 staffing vacancies for regular staff status employees. We believe it's appropriate to consider these openings both in terms of the budget for 2024 as well as how they fold into the requested additional staffing requests. When asked what that meant, I was informed by them that they think we need to really be filling those positions because that affects level of service, and we're attempting to increase our level of service by bringing additional people on at a cost. The full year impact of the requested staffing addition is more than $1 million at that time, and would bring the year-over variance to 18.2%. The financial concerns, we strongly recommend maintaining the millage rate because of that situation. In our letter of August 2, 22, commenting on the 23 budget, we suggested caution and a conservative approach for not only the budget we reviewed at that point, but future budgets as well. We believe this note of caution is still appropriate and still respectfully offer these comments for your consideration. There's another, some other point of information that I have here that I thought was interesting, and I don't have to get long into this, but we're showing a total revenue in 2024 at a time, and this is from the finance department, a total revenue of 108 this year, that's less debt, and a potential revised total debt of 125 million. I'll go all the way down to 2019, and at that point in time, we had total revenue of 111 million and a potential revised total debt of 31 million. So we've gone from 31 million in 19 to 125 million in debt. And just a metric. So I started looking at some other metrics that we could apply. There's a number of things that you can look at. You can look at debt per person and the like. I won't get into that because I think those numbers made us set a story. Our total labor costs, starting from 2015, let me just start at 2018. We're at 30.8%, and this year they would be at 32.4% if the numbers stayed the same, or as reported by at the most recent meetings that we've had. Comment about workforce, and this is again from Tampa Bay Times, and this is as it sort of relates to our workforce and sort of relates to the comment that was made by the Board of Finance. It says, what positions are essential? How does spending on personnel today impact future budgets? And what, more frankly, can Tampa taxpayers afford? This was in a relationship to the cost of Tampa's swelling workforce. So a larger workforce does not only one-time add expense, but additional outlays over time for annual pay raises, cost of living adjustments, and pension increases. So sort of what their concern was, the Board of Finance. I think the Board of Finance was asking us to be very cautious. I want to follow their recommendations here about being cautious. And the bad thing is if you're wrong when you're cautious, there really is not a bad case. A bad case if you're not cautious and things go wrong, can be credit ratings and other scrambles and what we call not sustainable. And I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote because I want to make sure that we are sustainable off into the future, certainly for our workforce, and certainly for our residents as they attempt to do their financial planning for their futures. So I'm not going to be supportive of the budget.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Gao.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, every year our church has a church service. It's a Kirkin of the Tartan, and we celebrate Scottish culture and heritage. It's a wonderful service. Y'all need to come. But part of that, we also have a fellowship where we have scones and eat things that we don't tell our doctors about. And they let me be in charge of oatmeal. One, because it's very simple and it's hard to screw up. But also it's something that I can do the night before. So I cook the oatmeal every night the night before, and then the morning of the service we go ahead and take our crock pot in and we plug it in. And in 1 year, we had the oatmeal, passenger seat I was driving, my wife was bracing the oatmeal, the crock pot with her feet. And I was doing my best to drive just as cautiously as I could. And so every time I'd turn a corner, I'd ask her if you got it? And she'd say, I got it. Fantastic. And you got it? I got it. You got it? I got it. You got it? I don't got it. And the oatmeal just went all over our floorboard. And so that is my concern with our downtown and we talk all the time. Ever since I've been on the commission, we talk about the charm and the character of our downtown. And I think it's going to be one of those things, we got it, until we don't got it. And that is really my concern. One of the things that we really brag about as far as the redevelopment of our downtown is how we changed Main Street 580 over to Skinner Boulevard, and we did that to get rid of traffic downtown. And in this year alone, we've expanded a parking lot with mixed material. We have created a contract where we have a looper pilot, and a pilot assumes or implies that we can say no if it doesn't work. I don't see how a free ride isn't going to work. So it's going to be successful. And now we're talking about a parking garage. All three of those projects in 1 year, all to encourage people to drive into our downtown, where we were so proud to get people not to drive in our downtown. I just think it's going in a different direction than what we've done historically. Certainly, it falls in line with, we've mentioned it here before, Clearwater Beach, right? And if you ask the business owners on Clearwater Beach, things are great. I've got heads in beds, butts in seats. Everything is wonderful. You ask the Clearwater Council, how are things at the beach? Great, revenue is up, life is good. You ask the residents of Clearwater, how are things at the beach? And they'll say, I haven't been there in years. And so that is the same. When I first got on the commission in 2018, that's when Preserve the Vibe was in its heyday, and we talked about charm and character and concern. We talked about hanging flower pots, a Mayberry-type concept on our downtown. How wonderful is that? Where life is beautiful all the time, and then all of a sudden we're increasing. We certainly have the tourist problem, and they're all coming by car. That's a big problem. But instead of addressing that problem, granted it's a hard problem to hold on to, we're giving in to that. And if you're going to invite more cars into our downtown, what are we going to have to do with widening our roads? And it's just going against the grain on where we need to be going as a city, where we need to be going as a county, and actually the entire state. And so in this year's budget, that parking garage is just on my last nerve. I am so afraid that our downtown is we got it, until we don't. And the problem is when we don't, we won't even notice it. Because you'll ask the business owners downtown, how are things? And they're going to say, great. I've got heads in beds. I've got butts in seats. Music until 10 p.m. People are coming from all over. It's great. We're going to ask the residents of Dunedin, how are things downtown? And they will tell you, I have no idea. I don't go anymore. And these are residents that during the pandemic busted their humps to support our downtown. And you saw it all over Facebook, the different restaurants they were going to order takeout to keep them alive and keep them above water. And then we are giving away our downtown to tourism. And so if we're going to be that tourist town, then let's keep going where we're going, because that's a big concern for me. But I will tell you, the budget is more than the parking garage. And so there are also some wonderful things in the budget. I can't be any more proud of what we're doing with staff and the labor pressures that we are receiving, that we are responding to. And Commissioner Freeney mentions it all the time, that the staff is the backbone, and they really, really are. And so that is just something I am so proud of in this budget. I certainly also share Vice Mayor's concerns over expenses, and there's a lot of stress over that. The fact that these capital projects are now, we have to finance them. When we first started talking about these capital projects, we were doing it on our own, but now it's to the point if we want all four, we have to finance. And with property values increasing our revenue, that's not enough for us, that we also now need to go and get loans to get what we want done. I think that's a concern and a direction. And so I am in favor of this budget, primarily because of the salary structure in there and what it's doing for the employees. Also because of the pool, because the pool is a community asset. The golf course, I consider that a community asset. I don't consider the parking garage a community asset. But next year, I'm going to be very, very concerned about finances in next year's budget, on how we're spending and why we're spending it and things of that nature. But for this budget, I am in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. A lot has been said, and I don't want to respond to every single thing that's been said, because we've had many, many meetings regarding the budget. And I think all of the various budget workshops that we've had, for the most part, I think we've all tried at least to not pick and choose on the projects themselves and try to give them all a chance, as been mentioned, moment in time. We've all tried to listen to each other. You know, when a rollback was requested or brought up, we asked, bring forward what you'd like to cut. We'd asked that last year, and neither time did we get any feedback on that. So when we're here as a group trying to work together as a team to find some common ground, it's very difficult when you don't have a willingness to do that. I'm disappointed in that, a second year in a row, that there's not a willingness to work with the group on a whole, to try to find some common ground. I'm just going to say it, I think it's more political than philosophical, because I think we could have come to some common ground. There could have been possibly some cuts, but there wasn't any suggestions. So I'm really, really disappointed in that, because it's my job to try to bring us all together. That doesn't mean we all have to vote the same way all the time, and I'm certainly not saying that, and I mean no disrespect to anyone. But we've had 5 or 6, including strategic planning, I guess it's been 6, or at least 5 very long all-day meetings talking about this budget. And to be sitting here 2 years in a row with at least one commissioner voting against this budget, I don't think it sends a good message to the community. It certainly doesn't send a good message to our employees, and that's just really disappointing to me, because I think as a team we could have done better. And I think if you're trying to lead an organization or trying to lead a city or trying to lead your residents, you have to show leadership. And leadership isn't essentially only focusing on what one person thinks. It's about what everyone thinks, and it's about coming together and leading and compromising. And I feel like that just isn't happening. And I'm really disappointed about that, because I do think that Les, you and your team have listened. Jennifer, I think you have listened. I think the majority of the commission has listened. Jeff, I thank you, as I know that garage is bugging you, and I'm not going to beat you up over it, even though I don't disagree. I disagree with a couple of things you just said. I appreciate your philosophy, but I also appreciate the fact that you just stood here and said you're supporting it because of all what we're doing for our organization and their employees. You're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I know that you're going to keep talking about that garage, and I fully expect to have many more fights with you about it, but not today. And I thank you for your leadership in that way. So given that, roll call vote.
Commissioner Gao,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Torga.
He said nay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Commissioner Franny,
Aye.
Mayor Brzezowski.
Aye, and the motion passes 4-1. Okay. I don't have anything else on the meeting, but I know that Commissioner Gao, you had something you
Mayor,
wanted
can
to just tell us?
Can I just make?
Sorry?
It's important I read this next slide, if that's okay. Just-
Oh, so,
yeah, sorry, it
sorry,
only take a
I was
second.
already moving out.
It only take a second, thank you.
You go right ahead.
In accordance with Florida's Truth and Millage trim laws, a notice of proposed tax increase and a budget summary advertisement will be published within 15 days of today's tentative budget hearing date. A public hearing to adopt the final millage rate and budget will be held on Thursday, September 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the City Hall, City Commission chambers. Thank you.
So that's going to be Thursday, the 21st?
Yes.
So
Thursday,
that'll be at our
21st.
regular scheduled meeting?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? And did you have any closing remarks, Jennifer, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I do. And first of all, I'd like to thank the 5 of you for the budget. And I know that it's been a very long and arduous process for all of you. It seemed that this year was a difficult year. You know, the year before, we had ARPA, And really, we're concentrating on implementing that ARPA spend plan. This year has been about the larger capital projects. I appreciate Commissioner Frainie bringing up the signature projects, because in 2023, we've accomplished a lot of them already, at the beginning of really Penny 4 still, which is where we are. So I thank you for all the time and all the deliberation, and I know that it's difficult for all of you, the whole budget process. I want to thank Les and Ashley and Jean, who is new to the budget this year, right? Wonderful teamwork, always responsive and objective as they develop the budget. The department directors who are all here this evening, thank you very much. When we first put the budget together, there is a lot of meetings amongst ourselves to look at the projects. What can we push back? What has to be done this year? And a whole bunch goes into that with the directors and their staff in order to develop the budget. This is always this first budget hearing, the first adoption hearing, if you will, is always a big night for us, even though there's nobody from the public here, even though there's, it's one of the three main things that I need to do, as described in the charter, is to provide you with a balanced budget every single year. And I'm proud of this budget, I really am, and what we've been able to accomplish when you think that we did the class and comp study and the organizational study, and we are funding it in 1 year, which is huge. The new positions have already had a positive impact on the organization in terms of there's help coming for some of these divisions and departments that are really understaffed and that were organizationally awkward and needed to be corrected. And so we're very grateful to all of you for that as well, and for trusting in staff to forward those personnel requests and that you understand that we'll fill them, and it's to move the mission of the organization forward. And so we have a big year coming up. We have a really big year coming up. We've got the capital projects from this point in time. Whatever we do moving forward, we've got to hire the new positions and implement this budget, and I'm really excited about what we have before us. So thank you very much. Thank you for everything, getting to this point. Thank the department directors for getting to this point, and looking forward to the 21st when we can put this budget to bed and move on.
Me too.
Yeah, I bet. Thank you, Mayor.
I don't think I've had this many budget meetings ever. But thank you, Jennifer, and I think on the 21st, we'll be in a much better position to talk about all the great stuff,
Yes.
that everybody has done, all the hard work and everything. So thank you, guys. So Commissioner Gao, you were going to just make sure the commission knew about Friday?
Yeah, just a reminder that it is homecoming week for the high school, and Friday is their parade. Step off is 5 o'clock. They ask us to be there at 4:30. They would like us all to be there.
At the pool?
At the pool, right behind the fire station. That's where all the staging will occur. And the parade route is just to the high school, so it should be quick.
And you're getting,
Get her
he's
done.
getting a 6-seater golf cart.
And working on getting a
for us,
6-seater, so we'll all
we can
just ride
get
together
in
and-
just one cart and wave.
Right.
So I think that's fun.
So there we go. And I did take liberty and ask Lindsay to already put it on your calendar, so it should all
I
be
just saw
there.
it come through a little bit ago.
And so if you can make it, it would be very nice if we all went out and supported the school. Go Falcons.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Just one other thing, too, and I know you're giving us briefings behind the scenes, but, we're talking about parades and things like that, but we still have residents that are, have been devastated by the storm, somewhere in the 150 range. And I just, is there something, I know that you're jumping on that. Can you give us a little bit of an update? And is there anything as a community that we should be doing?
Yes, absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner. We actually wore boots on the ground today. We had employees going through Baywood Shores. We had employees going through North Douglas and other areas that were impacted. We actually managed to get from the county the list of homes that were submitted in our damage assessment, and we put together a flyer, and the flyer has the phone numbers essentially. We're talking about debris removal. We do have a hauler under contract, somebody to pick up the debris under contract. Unfortunately, the flyer, we weren't able to say exactly what day we would come by. We don't have that commitment. We're pressing hard to get that done as soon as possible. So today we went door to door in those communities, handed them the flyer, and it has the FEMA addresses and phone numbers and all those sorts of things. And so, and we'll go back. We'll go back again if we need to help those who are impacted by the storm. I know that the mayor has asked me about rehousing opportunities, and that's something that I think that we need to jump on as well. I know Vice Mayor ran into the one person today who needed to find alternate accommodations. I think a lot of people have already, but I think I want to delve into that a little bit more. I'd like to get to the report from those who were on the ground today, if you will, to find out, what they found, if they were approached by residents, and what their needs are specifically. So those lines of communication are completely open at this point. And as I said, we'll go back again if we need to. So as far as the FEMA declaration on Sunday, that was huge. The challenge for us, as far as the debris removal goes, is that we had two avenues. First of all, we weren't FEMA eligible for that category as determined by the federal government. The county did a great job of going back to FEMA, saying, hey, drive through our subdivisions with us. I got a message late Sunday from the fire department that FEMA was, that Chief Fast had driven through the neighborhoods with FEMA inspectors. Then late Sunday night, it was determined that we were eligible for debris removal in that category and individual assistance. And at that point, we put the pedal to the metal to get the debris haulers. We have them under contract, but we have got to essentially get the time that they'll be through here and make sure that our monitoring agency, Tetra Tech, can certify the trucks. And so those sorts of things. The alternate to that, if we weren't FEMA eligible, would have been for us to pay for that ourselves. And that would have been, upwards of $300,000, we estimated. So that was a big, heavy lift. In order to be fiscally responsible and conservative, I had to get that price and put it before you. We couldn't just go out and start removing the debris. So that was really the lag in time between when the storm hit and when we're able to remove the debris. So, I commend staff, Sue Bartlett and her crew. Bill Pickram he went out in the field today with the crew to talk to residents himself, and he's our division director of solid waste. And a group of 10 employees from all different departments went out in the field today to answer those questions in the heat. Natalie Gass led that crew, and I sat down with her just before they left, and I was really proud of what she had put together as she walked through the neighborhoods. So we are on it. We are publishing all the most up-to-date information on our websites. As far as is there additional things the community can do, I will let you know. Let me talk to those crews and find out, what they found in the neighborhoods, as I said, and then we can talk about other opportunities.
If folks want to call the city and ask questions, is there a particular person that they should speak to that might be the best person for them, versus calling all the different departments?
It really depends on the department. If it's debris removal, then there's a phone number for them. There's numbers for county. There's a number for FEMA. There's not really one subject matter expert. And the one person today, I will say, that needed rehousing had already contacted FEMA themselves. Vice Mayor told me so. But there are those who may need assistance and resources. But we don't have one specific clearinghouse, Mayor.
Okay.
And I'm assuming there could be permitting issues that we can help with as things go forward, if people are having to redo things.
Yeah, if you...
and that's where, I think that's where you
We
can
went
really
through
do
that,
it.
if you remember,
For
with
Irma.
Irma,
Yes.
when people's fences were knocked down, we
Right.
didn't make a big deal about them putting it back, that kind of thing. So
trying to
we
make
may
it
not
easy.
be there yet, but it would be great to think about that ahead of time.
That's a really good point, and I can work with the building division as far as what we can do for permitting for these folks.
Obviously for the small stuff.
Right, not the big
Not
stuff,
big
the small
stuff,
stuff.
because those are life safety things, but.
Right.
But we did try to do that with Irma, just to make people's lives a little easier.
Yeah.
The other thing that I don't think it probably applies in this case, but it has in past storms. Sometimes there were childcare issues, that our rec department could help with, that just small ways, So, I don't know, that there may be something in that, but maybe not.
I know St. Petersburg did that.
Yeah.
Right,
we-
yeah.
We had special times because we knew parents couldn't work. They were in crisis dealing with other stuff, and, we'd, kind of provide a special.
Right. We can certainly look into that. We'll find out what the field crew found out.
Just depends on the needs.
Yeah.
And then if you see the other thing, I think I sent it to you this afternoon. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it. I don't think there's a lot of this at all, but what Mayor Welch did in St. Pete was allowed the people who had damage to their homes that had to move out, allowed them to use their their campers in their yard, which of course is against code. But they were able to plug in, and I don't think there's a lot of that. If you're talking 150 homes, you might have 2 or 3 people that actually have a camper. But they allowed that in the yard, not in the road, and
Right.
allowed them to live in it, or allowing them to live in it. Again, I don't know how you communicate that.
Yeah.
You know, and it certainly doesn't apply to anybody that, outside of that, but I did think it was a creative solution for at least a couple of people if they actually had a camper.
Yeah, Mayor, we actually did that in South Florida after Wilma. And so there are, you know, you can put in place some requirements, for example, exactly how long it can stay there after the permit's been issued for the roof or whatever, because people do tend to take advantage of that. But it's beneficial because then they're in the neighborhoods, their eyes in the neighborhoods.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, we could certainly look at that.
All right, well, just stick it to on your list of things to talk about. I'm sure there are positives and negatives to that I'm not thinking about, but I just thought, well, St. Pete did it, might be kind of been interesting. Not that there's, again, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that have them.
Yeah, it's really establishing the timeframes, but it's certainly something we can look at. Things like that to support our residents we'll consider everything that would support them.
Okay. Anything else from the informational side from anybody? Okay, I think we're adjourned. We'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Thank you.